I am a homicidal maniac.
Scott Nelson stands accused of the brutal kidnapping and murder of Florida resident Jennifer Fulford. He admits to the attack, but blames his parole officer, Julio Dominguez, for what happened. As Nelson sees it, he's a man unfairly and improperly prosecuted by the penal system. On that fateful day, Nelson says the unwitting victim found herself in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I believe the term is collateral damage.
Nelson is adamant that he did not intend to commit the murder. Against advice of counsel, he's determined to tell his story. This is a case of a defendant walking the knife's edge. Could the jury see him as a victim or simply a cold-blooded killer? And at the least, could his testimony spare him the death penalty?
Given the heavily aggravated nature of this case, the decision was made that the state would in fact seek the death penalty against Scott Nelson.
It wasn't my intent to go around the countryside killing people. I didn't want to kill that woman. She'd never done anything to me.
They knew from the beginning that there would be a conviction in this particular case. And there was only two things that they can do. One was to try to get a lesser crime of murder in the second degree, or if they could not get murder in the second degree, save their client's life. Those 12 members on the jury, you only have to convince one. The crime was heinous, atrocious, and cruel. It occurred during the perpetration of a robbery. There were multiple stab wounds. There's suffocation, and with suffocation and the duct tape, there's that terror.
Nelson claims he was furious with the parole officer who he believes got him fired from his job. Homeless and hungry, that night he found himself in the Tony enclave of Winter Park. He explains that he made a decision to take out his anger on the affluent neighborhood that represented a world that would never accept him. The initial crime scene was the home of resident Reed Berman. The unfortunate victim, alone at the time, was his longtime employee and family friend Jennifer Fulford, who was a caregiver to Reed's children.
You don't know Reed Berman, right?
Never met the man.
And you didn't know Jennifer Fulford?
No, I don't.
One of the things you told the detectives was that you saw Jennifer Fulford at this residence the night before. True?
True.
With the young boy?
True.
And the night before, you decided she was going to be your target.
That'd be correct. She opened the door and let me in.
He forced his way inside. He had a knife and duct tape and zip ties, and he bound her hands behind her back and bounded her ankles. Wrapped her up in a comforter and put her in the trunk of her very own car. Nelson drove Jennifer's car clear across Orlando, where he took her out of the trunk, wrapped her face with duct tape, and stabbed her in her chest and her back.
Scott Nelson could have knocked on anybody's door. He intended to take out his anger and his resentment on somebody in that community, and that somebody wound up being Jennifer Fulford. There's an element of randomness to that. It's chilling and it's terrifying. Scott Nelson, not that long after he had been released from prison, he was trying to make his way. He was living with a family, doing some handyman type of work, and his parole officer had visited the people that he was staying with and let them know about Nelson's history. They kicked him to the curb effectively. He lost his job and sought vengeance after that.
I've been beaten. I've been chained to beds for days at a rip. I've been locked in cells that are so stifling hot. I have flashbacks to this very day. I've had cockroaches running over my body. I've been beaten. I've been raped. I've been everything in prison.
But if Nelson's plan on the stand was to be less than forthcoming, his original confession to police was a chilling reminder of the horrific crime.
I'm not gonna let this bitch testify against me. I don't even know if she realized she was stabbed. So I started duct taping her face more, and I said, I decided I'm gonna kill her. So I just duct taped her whole head, and then I stabbed her again in the back, but I know it must have went through her lung. And that's when she started crying, like, oh no, no. She knew at that point she was going to die.
State of Florida versus Scott Nelson. Verdict, count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder with a weapon as charged in the indictment. Verdict, count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of kidnapping with intent to inflict bodily harm.
There were only 2 options for punishment: the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I am a homicidal maniac.
Mr. Nelson, do you want to be sentenced to death?
Yes.
I'm going to object. That's an improper question.
In accordance with the jury's verdict, the court sentences the defendant to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on count 1 of the indictment.
11 jurors had voted for death and 1 juror had voted for life without parole.
Ultimately, it seems Scott Nelson's decision to take the stand aided in his defense. Acting the way he acted and saying what he said, for 1 juror at least, presented some mitigating evidence to spare his life.